Here we go.
G'day fans and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card. And if you're wondering, am I back on the healthy bandwagon? The answer is effing no. I am still coughing my guts up and I'm about to do it right now. Pain in the ass. So, oh, shit. I got myself a fisherman's friend here. Oh, Jesus. Mr. Aaron, how you going, mate? Because I'm sucking big time here.
Well, all I can do is laugh because I had it for weeks and weeks as well, and I still haven't got rid of it, but I'm 99% there. I'm in my multicoloured Doctor Who top again, so it's going to be another fantastic Doctor Who episode tonight, isn't it, Dave?
God damn it. Friggin' Docky Who. It is absolutely end-to-end with Docky Who tonight, and I tell you what, it is killing me. I was like, everything is Docky Who, and it's like, oh, dude, what are you deliberately trying to punish me or something, are you?
Well, I figured your voice is giving out, so if we do a couple of Doctor Who episodes, you can have a bit of a rest, and we'll be back to normal nerdity from next week on.
Very good. Now, I will be muting myself on occasions to try and get rid of so I don't cough on the microphone because the mics clearly don't like it. But
yeah.
Greg King, Docky Who, you can never get enough of it. Yes, Jonathan, you are right. I do actually need a doctor. So I had COVID 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks today, actually. And I was actually, if you remember, ripped off the card 2 weeks ago. I actually came on air and I was bloody already crook. So I've gotten past the COVID part, but yeah, got the lingering side effects, which are, I'm a slag monster. Oh, mate, cop that, he says.
The COVID is buried in so deep, you actually need a proctologist.
Oh, tell you what, friggin' hell. And don't forget, there's always time for lubrication. Now, big thing, last Friday, of course, was the big 25% off all-you-can-eat pizza sale at your store. How was it, old son? Was it wall-to-wall nerds and sales? Tell us all about it.
It was like eating pizza solid to 11 o'clock, and then I was rolled out like Violet Beauregard by the Oompa Loompas as a giant-sized Aaron. It was a great night. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of chatting and a lot of people turned up. So thanks for everyone who came along, and we will try and do it more regularly, I think.
One of the things that's worth noting is you're right. It was a good night, and we all got together, and we got to have a bit of a hangout and eat pizzas and chill out and whatever else, and chill literally because it was freezing cold. One of the great things I love about like your store is that it encourages, as you in your promotion, encourages chatting and conversation and all the rest of it. And I've always said that when it comes to talking about pop culture things, i.e. nerdy things, there's a time and a place. Right. I mean, there are some places like you wouldn't do it at a dinner party. You wouldn't do it like visiting the zoo or anything like that, talking nerdy stuff. But your store is the time and the place to do it. So, and fan club meetings used to be like this as well when they were on prior to the COVID issue. So the best thing I really enjoy about your store is you walk in there and you go, you know what? I want to talk about this movie. I want to talk about this character. I want to talk about this. And it just goes off. And one of your guys there, Horror Dave, as you like to call him, he was in the zone. I tell you what, he was just wall-to-wall nerd talk about this movie from the 80s, this movie from the 90s, this character here, that character there. And it's fantastic because it is one of the rare occasions where you can just cut loose and no one's going to judge you for what you're talking about. So, yeah, I love it.
Cut loose, talk about nerdy movies, and spend money.
All in that order. Not necessarily in that order is what you're trying to say. So there you go. Christy said, please more notice next time. Yeah, you are right. It was only 3 days notice, if I recall. So you can blame Aaron for that because he's a slack ass.
Here's the thing. I'll address that. If we say we're having a 25% off sale in 2 weeks, we don't make any money in 2 weeks because no one spends anything. We only ever give 3 days notice for sales for that very reason. But Christy, what I will do, I think what Dags was saying about just getting together and having a chat and having some pizza, we might do more of those nights regularly without the sales just to get together because it was a good night.
It's also worth noting, Christy, this is very, very important. What Aaron just said, he doesn't want to give people 2 weeks worth of notice because then people sort of like don't buy anything, right? Because Aaron is a capitalist dog. Remember, he's the woofer with the dollar bills sticking out of its mouth. Mate, any chance to make a few bucks, he's going to go for it. So if he's going to lose a few bucks, mate, he'll tell you like 24 hours notice if it ensures he gets lots of people turning up to buy stuff. So
just want to point out, who paid for the pizzas, me or you?
I'll tell you what, they're bloody nice pizzas too. But no, it was very good. And I do believe the sales on Saturday and the weekend were particularly successful.
Really good,
right?
Yeah, it was a good weekend. So, yeah, thanks everyone who participated. And there's a few more people. Hi, Kelvin. Hi, Joe. Hi, Gavin.
There we go. Oh, yeah. Now, how's this, right? So, Christy would say she would spend money regardless. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now, the Doctor Who Club of Victoria has actually rolled up under their own banner. How good is this? Mr. Phil has slipped his way into the show. How good's this?
Excellent. Hi, Phil. Thanks for being here, mate.
Yeah, I tell you what, you're going to be loving it, Phil, because it is nothing but Docky effing Who for the rest of this show. And believe it or not, the very first image that comes up, oh God, is this one. So there you go, kids. Good stuff. Is Kelvin the loaded dog? I tell you what, he's loaded with cash when he wants to not spend it. There you go. And I like a guy. Yes, do get more pizza, the more collectibles we buy. What do you reckon for that, Mr. Aaron?
Absolutely. For every $500 worth of collectibles, I'll buy another pizza.
Yeah, love it. Fantastic. So, and you are right. Glenn's joined us from YouTube. Glad it went well. It was indeed. No, I'm serious. It was actually a very, very good night. All right. Let's start doing some Doctor Who stuff, and let's kick it off with a little bit of this. All right, so what do you need? I tell you what I don't need is more Doctor Who in my life, but unfortunately that's not the case because I'm going to get some.
Well, this is an interesting one that's popped up out of nowhere. There's some pictures there of various doctors, and they're all doing one unusual thing for Doctor Who. Can you tell me what they're doing, Dags, from those pictures?
I'm trying to think of a smart-ass comment, and I can't. Pissing off their fans, I don't know.
Well, it's one of those shows, doesn't happen much, but the Doctor does enjoy a drop of alcohol once in a while, and it's through all his regeneration. So there's a couple of pictures there. And you know what's come out this week or the last week for Doctor Who fans? Bonehead Brewing has released a regeneration limited edition, I guess it's a craft beer, with a Doctor Who label. Now, this is really interesting because it's not licensed, and not licensed stuff that looks pretty cool like this often disappears really fast and is very hard to find when the BBC come with their ban hammer. Now, I don't know that for sure because they might not be policing it at all, but I do know that a few years ago there was Gallifrey wine released in Australia, and the BBC said, "No, you don't do that." And they had to take it off the market because they had a police box on the label. And the police box at the time wasn't even owned by the BBC. It was like a British police logo, but they still went after it. So this is available locally. And as you can see there, we've got the third Doctor rating it for us, and he's giving it this is an amazing look. I have a 4-pack of them, courtesy of my friend Edwin, which I will not be opening and will not be drinking, and they're sitting over my shoulder just there. So I've actually bought what I need this week. I didn't bought it, I was gifted it, but I've got it.
Love it. Phil said here about Bonehead, indeed. I mean, what a name, Bonehead. Bonehead, the word, and Doctor Who kind of don't exactly go hand in hand, do they? So
interesting, yes.
Very, very good. All right, ultra rare collectibles. William has made a point of saying we remember the Duff beer in the 90s. Jeff Rowe, who's one of our sometimes viewers here, actually has some of that Duff beer stashed away in his collection, which is particularly groovy. So, what?
Yeah, and Duff beer goes for quite a lot of money, the real stuff.
Can't get enough of that wonderful Duff. All right, anyway, we move on to the next one. The bit of the old art of Phil Bevan. And what do you reckon Phil draws? Doctor Who pictures.
Now, this is a really interesting book because Phil Bevan is not a very well-known artist, but he was one of my favorite fan artists growing up. And anyone who grew up through the 80s and 90s will remember Phil's art from a lot of high-profile fanzines. He was one of the original artists of Doctor Who Bulletin. Went before it went pro, when it was sort of a photocopied paper magazine, and then he stayed with it as it evolved. And he also did he was with the CMS company Cybermark, and they did the Doctor Who files and In Vision, and he was probably their lead artist, and most of the amazing covers he did for them he did for the ones that they had fantastic covers for, and a lot of black and white line work, which was quite amazing too. And he also was able to go professional and have stuff printed in Doctor Who magazine and other professional publications. Now, this is a book that is on pre-order at the moment through Telos publications. It's on special if you pre-order it. And a lot of these very specialized books get one run and then they are very hard to find. And when you buy them on the secondary market, they cost an arm and a leg. So if you are into Doctor Who art, this is quite a thick book and it has a lot of pieces I have never seen before. It's on pre-order at the moment. Did you want to add something, Dags?
Who's this meant to be?
Who's what?
The woman there.
I think
yeah.
I think that's from some of his non-Doctor Who work.
Oh, okay, I thought it might be one of the companions or something. I was thinking, okay, I don't know where that comes into the scheme of things. Yep, sorry.
Well, it's one of those things where a lot of his work, they did take license with some of the pictures and add to it. And there is a Caves of Androzani cover there that is a bit more revealing than was actually in the show from a Doctor Who episode as well. But that was one of the great things about artwork of the time. You've got different people's interpretation of the stories, and Philip Bevan was one of those sort of seminal fans during the period that was doing amazing artwork. So, yeah, it's available pre-order now from Telos. I think most Doctor Who fans would know where to find Telos publications. This one kind of slipped in without me realizing it was going to be there. I've ordered a copy and I look forward to receiving it. So just a heads up for anyone, it's out there on pre-order at the moment.
Very good.
It wasn't Nissa, I don't think.
Okay, cool. No worries. Very, very groovy. Good stuff. All right, so sticking with the Doctor Who theme.
Now, here we get into what a lot of collectors are interested in at the moment, and that is the character options Doctor Who figures. And this is the first major wave announcement for the year, and it's a mixed bag. Last year, we had some amazing figures that concentrated on some eras of the classic show that we haven't had figures from before, some of the monsters. This year is a bit different. The first announcements, I think most fans have found a bit underwhelming. So we'll start with the good stuff. We've got the Dalek sets here. This is Dalek set 10 from Death to the Daleks, and it comes with 2 Daleks, one with a machine gun, one with the regular laser from the Pertwee story, Death to the Daleks. And Dalek sets are always going to sell, and people buy Daleks for army builders. If we go back to the previous one, this is the other Dalek set that's coming out, History of the Daleks set 9 from Planet of the Daleks. Now, the Planet of the Daleks set is interesting because we've had both of these Daleks before, but they haven't been available for ages. So on the secondary market, some of these 2 Daleks can go for up to $100 each. I've seen the Supreme actually go for more. Of course, when they reissue stuff, it's never exactly the same as the original. So I think they've improved it from the original version. The chrome on the Supreme looks a lot golder. The light ray Dalek looks clearer than the original light ray Dalek. So if you have got the originals, probably won't bring the prices down too much. But these are Daleks that have been available before.
Yeah, and don't forget the Supreme comes with extra olives, so I thought I'd just chuck that in.
Well, here's the ones that are a bit controversial and have been a letdown to a lot of fans. If you were collecting Doctor Who from different eras, you're quite happy to get a Doctor and a companion and a monster, but this is the first time that character has ever done this. They've packed 3 of the same Doctors in the same box with just costume variations. A lot of people already have these. They have the existing versions that have been released over the past 10 years. This set is okay because the 8th Doctor ones have kind of disappeared and do go for a bit on the secondary market, but I could almost see these sets being line killers. Previous sets have all pretty much sold out when they've appeared, especially in Australia. This set isn't as appealing to anyone but hardcore collectors, because if you are a kid and you're collecting Doctor Who, and you have a certain amount of pocket money, do you want to buy 3 of the same character in a pack with just major or minor costume variations? Probably not. And the 8th Doctor has had a life beyond the show on the audio. Yes, Peg Warmers has had a life beyond the show on the audio, but he's really only had, about an hour and a half of screen time, going back, I guess, 96. So this is a very, very specific set for 8th Doctor fans, and I do not see it selling. To give you an example, as a retailer, the Dalek sets, I will pre-order 30 of each of those for the shop. Those Doctor sets, I will probably pre-order 5, and I don't know if I will sell them all.
Is that the same with these guys?
Now, that's the same as this one as well. David Tennant is probably the most popular of the new series Doctors. But the thing is, every variant of his has been released before, and they have tried really hard to come up with different costume variants. But because they have the existing molds to reuse for cheapness, the costumes already have existed in different colors or slightly different variations due to the paint jobs. David Tennant is an interesting one because although he's the most popular Doctor, that means he also sold the most when his figures were originally around. And on the secondary market, whenever there's a collection, you've always got a lot of David Tennant in them. So in my shop, we sell loose and retro figures. David Tennant is always the Doctor we have the most of in stock, especially loose and all the different versions of them. This is the same thing. If you're a collector who loves David Tennant, you've probably got most of these variants before, but you might buy it because you want to be a completist. But if you're a kid, again, who is looking to add to your Doctor Who collection, you're probably going to go for a set that has 3 different characters rather than just one. And also, if you're just after a David Tennant figure, there's still plenty of them on the secondary market that are cheaper than the ones that we're going to have coming out in this next quarter with these toys. So they've announced these. They haven't got pictures, but they've announced the next wave later in the year, which is the 9th Doctor set and a 10th Doctor set. Sorry, 11th Doctor set. And if they have 3 of the same figures in them as well, I can really see the whole Doctor Who line seizing up because a lot of these will be stuck in the system and retailers won't want to be ordering anymore, which is quite disappointing for me as a Doctor Who fan, where I want to see every character ever on the show released at some point.
Moneybag Sullivan said it's the company being lazy. Yeah, that probably sounds a bit like that, actually. So, yeah, very, very cool. Shane has said, yeah, the 9th and 13th. I mean, it's just numbers, yeah, very good. It's bingo, Dr. Bingo. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Very good.
Be interesting to see how they go. I would love to eat my words and they sell out worldwide, but I can't see it happening. The other thing character are doing is a lot of people in England scalp these figures overseas because they don't come out in every single country. They're actually making, a poor Christmas for scalpers because none of these figures are going to sell on the secondary market.
I love the fact that you said, I hope you eat your words and they sell really well. That's because the capitalist dog known as Aaron's Collectables going, oh, mate, woof, woof, woof. It's like eating palamidi bites and just pouring out anywhere. Doctor Who figures are disappearing off the shelves. How good is this? I was proven wrong. Oh, give me more money, more money. So, yes, exactly right. Very, very cool. So there's more stuff to look forward to. Very cool. All right. Enough of the news. 3 Doctor Who things in a row. What do you reckon we could have right about now? It is time for this.
Useless Pop of the Week!
Now, the question you've got to ask yourself, is this yet another meaningless, useless Doctor Who pop or not? What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
No, this is one of the few segments on the show tonight I decided not to highlight more Doctor Who, just so everyone else who's watching, there's a bit of diversity. Now, would you have recognised who this pop was without knowing from the box?
No, I didn't. Once I learned what it was, I thought, oh, okay. So everybody out there, have a look at this. See if you can figure it out without looking it up. I obviously doing an astronaut suit, if that's pretty obvious. I wouldn't have picked up what it was from. But once I eventually learnt what it was, I go, oh, that's actually not too bad. I didn't think it was as bad as it was. So I agree, Shane. All pops are useless. Can't argue with that. Even Moneybag Sullivan is happy it's not a Doctor Who thing. So very cool. Shane has said Buck Rogers. That's a very good guess, but no, it's not actually. Buck Rogers as well from Gavin. Jonathan said Guy from the Moon. From Moon, no. And you are right, Mark. It is Howard from the Big Bang Theory. Howard Wolowitz. So there you go. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Now I thought this was a particularly useless one because if I was going to buy an astronaut in a suit like that, I'd want it to be from Interstellar or Planet of the Apes or one of these cool things. I think that Big Bang Theory has kind of had its day. The first couple of series were really good, and after it kind of lost it. And by that time, they started pumping out the merchandise, and really nobody was into it. And this is an obscure version of the figure that was only in a couple of episodes. If I was gonna buy an astronaut, it would not be the Howard Wolowitz Big Bang theory version of one in pop form. But that's just me. Maybe you want to buy it.
I definitely don't want to buy it. I agree with you. I mean, the show was years ago. It's been cancelled. They should have put this out when the character was like all those seasons ago. So if you're a bit of a Big Bang Theory person, I can see why you'd go for it. But it is, I agree with you, totally obscure. And once again, as we saw, if you don't have the box, you got no idea what it is. So, yeah, okay. Oh, look at the Shane. He had to buy a Britney Spears pop for his daughter. Nearly killed. Oh, dude, I'm feeling your pain, son. So there you go. Good stuff. But yes, it's not the worst one we've seen on this show. Good old Howard Wolowitz, but I can certainly agree with you that it would still be classed as useless. And you do wonder if anybody be saying, "Oh, I've got to have one of those." Yeah, totally agree. Very good. And Phil agrees, yeah, it should have been. You got to capture the market when it's there. Yeah, you produce the pop when the dude's on the show on the space station, not like freaking 10 years after the fact. Bit slow on that one. Very, very cool. All right. What was it? I like Big Bang, but it's just another piece, big the big bit of plastic. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Completely useless, as these things often are. Now, here's an interesting one, kids, because we've been discussing this entire saga for months at a time. A lot of people have noticed the absence of a regular contributor to this show. So is there a story as to what's going on? All will be revealed. All right. So what are we talking about here, Mr. Aaron?
Well, as you mentioned, there has been one of the, I would say, a show favourite who's contributed most of this year to the show, who's kind of disappeared, and that's Ronnie, our man in AliExpress, who corresponds with us regularly from China or Hong Kong or wherever the stuff's coming from. So I did think this may be the last episode where he's mentioned, because I hadn't got anything from him for about 3 weeks now.
So for those who haven't been following the entire story, Aaron's been buying stuff from these crowds overseas for a few months now. None of it's been turning up, or if it's turning up, it's the wrong stuff. Ronnie has become the go-to customer service guy. I use that in inverted commas. And he thinks there's nothing to complain about. Everything's great and wonderful and all the rest of it. But of course, as you said, since nothing's arrived for the past few weeks, he's just disappeared, right? And of course, Ronnie was doing actually reviews of his own products on the show, saying they're the greatest things in the entire universe, even when they were clearly the wrong item that you received. So good stuff. So even Greg saying, yeah, come back, Ronnie. Well, we have to find out what happened to him. And there's been a bit of correspondence between Aaron and the mysterious Ronnie, who's vanished into the ether. What is the deal, Mr. Aaron? So there's a bit of text here. Aaron's going to be reading this out. And will Ronnie come back? This is the question you have to ask yourself, fans. Has he just been buried under a pile of rubble of collectibles that clearly nobody wanted in the world? What is the deal? All will be revealed. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
Well, sadly, it's mainly one-way text, so I'm going to be reading a lot of my own words here, unfortunately, but we'll see where it goes.
Very, very cool. Don't forget, Ronnie is with the company that tends to sort of like sell dodgy products, but in his eyes, they're not. All right, off to you, sir.
Hi, Ronnie. I'm worried, my friend. I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. It is very unusual, as you usually give me unique customer service experience. I'm also still waiting for a few items from your company, Indiana Jones collectibles, an Infinity Gauntlet, and also, if you may remember, a small replica home for hobbits. Can I expect any of my goods anytime soon? Your friend, Aaron.
Now, of course, the home for hobbits has been missing for months, right? You've sent like 3 lots of $9.95 money postage to good old Ronnie, and it's still a no-show. So, but of course, that wasn't enough to jog some responses, so you wrote again.
I didn't get any reply to that. So a couple of days later, I wrote this. Hi, Ronnie, I'm really worried. It's been a few days since my last message and I haven't had any signs of life. I miss you. I miss our chat. I miss buying low-price knockoff collectibles that may or may not arrive as described, or may not arrive at all. Can you at least send a quick message to let me know that you're okay and haven't been demoted to picking stock in the warehouse? Your friend, Aaron.
Very good. Even the Vile are saying he wants to violate Ronnie. Absolutely love it. So there you go. Has he been sacked? Well, you wouldn't have thought so. All the money that Aaron's been sending to the guy and not receiving products, you would have thought he got promotions instead, but he still hasn't responded.
I didn't get a response to that. Hi, Ronnie. I have to let you know last week the Soul Greg King started a prayer vigil for you amongst the Bendigo Doctor Who fan club. So worried is he for your disappearance. We are all hoping that you will send us a message soon, or if you don't, your body will be found and identified so we are not left wondering what has happened forever. Your friend, Aaron.
Indeed. Gavin's already given up on him, so we sort of will miss him, and he has retired. Well, has he? I don't know, because the guy is still in absentia. What's going on?
And this was probably the last thing I was going to send. Dear Ronnie, I don't have much hope of hearing from you again. As a mark of respect, I have ordered a headstone-like grail marker from Indiana Jones and also sent you a payment of $20 to help with payments and bribes to get my outstanding items sent to me. I will pray for your poor widow and children, who I'm not even sure you have. I will now, that was meant to be, I will not message you again. Yours reverently, Aaron.
Well, how about that? Ronnie is done. He's dusted. He's packed up. He's gone home. But was the $20 lifeline enough to coax him out of retirement and go, oh, there's still money coming his way? Well, funny enough, it was.
So after I thought, at the end of this, I'll show you the next thing I had prepared, because I didn't think I would ever hear from Ronnie again. But until then, this is the reply I got yesterday. Hello, my friend Aaron. Thank you for all the payments. I am happy that you sent $20 for shipping of items. This will definitely mean we rush your outstanding orders to you. You are a great man. Most customers yell in caps lock when I stop answering. You send more money. You are no longer just mild annoyance customer who write too much. You really are friend to me and factory here. I am not dead. I think you joke with me. My wife is not widow and I am not with my ancestors. We had bad time here and many days we were closed because of COVID. I do not have computer at home. Thank you for new order, and we'll check about old ones so you can be super happy with service again. Tell Greg King fans don't need to pray for me. Okay. If they want to pray, I am becoming more rich. Happy to write you more excellent product reviews, Ronnie.
How are you supposed to respond to that, dude? So you send him money and he decides to wake up. You're not as annoying as you once were, even though you are annoying. It's got Dodge written all over it, doesn't it? Like, what is the deal? And I agree. Yes, money talks, caps lock walks. I like that one. That's very, very good, actually.
Well, the funny thing is, he obviously, whatever he wrote, it wasn't you are an annoying customer that writes too much. It must have been something similar to that, probably not as insulting, but Google Translator spat out that at me, which I think is quite interesting.
Unbelievable. I mean, as we've been saying for quite a few months now, for people who haven't been following what's going on, the whole thing is a massive scam that's going on, right? So people like Aaron, I mean, obviously you're doing it as a bit of a joke, but a lot of legitimate people send money to buy products from these companies overseas, and they're not getting the products, or what they're getting is the incorrect product. And of course, you go, well, okay, if I didn't get it, I'll claim $30 back on PayPal, or if I do get it and it's complete rubbish, oh, well, who cares? But when you multiply that tens of thousands of times, people like Ronnie are getting rich, and you've sent a lot of money so far, like at least 3 lots of $9.95 for the shipping of the Hobbit's home, plus an extra $20. That's $50 already, just for nothing, for fresh air. And
that item was $16, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm $66 in.
Yeah, and you still haven't got it either. So, and of course, we caught Ronnie out multiple times when he said, oh, it's been shipped. And then later on, a week or two later, he'd say, oh, we'll send it to you post haste in an express post and whatever. Hang on, dude, you already said it's in the post. So, yeah, it's a real scam. And of course, it's catching a lot of people out. And that's the trick. That's how you want to do it. If you want to scam people, don't charge a fortune for the product. Charge a really, really cheap price and get just a lot more people buying. So, unbelievable. Yeah. Yes, and I agree, Christy. Yeah, it is. Money means an answer. So, yeah, it took an extra $20 just to get Ronnie out of his cave to respond back to you. So, there you go.
I do wonder, he does watch this sometimes, what he'll think of this episode, actually.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, you did produce your tombstone for him.
Yep. So this was going to be the end of my correspondence with Ronnie, and then he emerged from his cave. But yeah, I did order a Grail tablet from AliExpress, which he must be very happy about. And here lies Ronnie Woo, bought from him in 91 and 92. He ripped me off, and now we're through. Let's raise a glass to Ronnie Woo. But obviously, we can scratch that because he's back with us again.
There you go. How about that? Ronnie Woo has returned. I agree with you. You need a Ronnie Woo, a fun jar at the shop. Yes, exactly right. So, I mean, we've made a bit of a joke of it, but there is a bit of a dark side to it as well. But anyway, so long as it keeps providing the entertainment, then it is all good. Very, very cool. You can get something worthwhile if really fortunate. Well, yeah, one is you've got to hope you get it in the first place. And as we've seen multiple times, very rarely do you actually get what you're ordering. And then in a lot of occasions, you don't actually get anything at all. So, good stuff. Funny stuff indeed. Can't argue with that. All right. So, speaking of things that are like Ronnie's an entertaining guy and he's a very cool dude, but he's not as cool as this dude. Of course, it's the Lord Vile's Vile File, Mr. Aaron. What's going on?
Well, it's interesting because last week, because it was a bit of a Doctor Who theme, we looked at vile Doctor Who monsters, and that was probably going to be it. But I actually got a couple of correspondence in the shop and through messages saying we didn't show the vilest Doctor Who monsters. So, dear Master Vile, on your episode on Doctor Who monsters using the Third Doctor's face as a rating system was a work of vile genius. I do think, though, the monsters on the new series have been even more vile. Maybe you can do a Doctor Who special with 13's face as the rating. Now, usually we have a Jodie Whittaker moratorium on this show, but I think if we're using her funny faces as a rating, we can probably go with it, can't we, Dags?
Yeah, and for those who are worrying, no, we're not going to say one of the ugly Doctor Who aliens is Jodie Whittaker or the 13th Doctor herself. We're not doing that at all. So
no,
it's all good, keyboard warriors. Just settle down. So there you go. We are going to look at some pretty horrible, and like some of these things actually sort of like look very, very groovy. So all right, go for it, Mr. Aaron.
So the first one the Vile has come up with is the Slitheen. Now, they're not particularly the worst designed alien ever. They're a little bit maybe kid show rather than Doctor Who. Do you know what the Slitheen are famous for, though, Dags?
I wouldn't have a bloody clue, dude.
They're the first Doctor Who episode where the aliens are famous for farting, and the Doctor has to, say, "Can you please stop farting while I'm talking to you?" Which I don't know is probably different in tone from the Doctor Who most of us are used to, and it's one of those things that maybe when Doctor Who came back, before they calibrated it exactly to the audience that they wanted, it was maybe aimed a bit too kiddie. So farting aliens is the first one we've gone for in the new series of Doctor Who, vile Docky Who monsters.
Oh, I'm waiting for the lead-in to show the reaction. What do you want to say?
And here's the lead-in to show the reaction. Jodie Whittaker, whoever smelt it, dealt it, that kind of.
Yeah, very good. As you can see, we've pre-rehearsed this show to great detail. All right, here we go.
So this is the next one. This is the Pating. The Pating is an alien from Jodie Whittaker's first series. It was this little alien. It was a little bit like Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, except it wasn't quite cute enough to be a cute alien, and it wasn't quite mean enough to be a mean alien. So yeah, it lied somewhere in between. And again, it's one of those things where you kind of go, what were they going for? And this alien's, weird superpower was it could eat pretty much anything. And it broke the sort of reality where it could eat a girder or a beam about 3 times its size and just eat it and it would disappear. And you're kind of like, well, that doesn't work with physics because its stomach isn't even that big. I get that it can eat anything, but that ain't don't say it's like a TARDIS. It's not got a bigger inside stomach than the outside. Suddenly you're a Doctor Who fan.
Mate, it was just reminding me of a shitload of fanboys because I
yes.
Not mentioning anybody in particular as I look directly at you.
Yeah, some of the fans on Pizza Night. Okay. Well, what does Jodie think of this one, Dags? Yeah. It's another one of those. Let's shrug. Shouldn't have been a monster in Doctor Who. Pretty crap.
Very good.
So now we're getting somewhere. This is the Absorbaloff. And of course, Dags, this would be from one of your favourite episodes ever, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just looked at this and I thought, yep, that reminds me of a few fans that I know. Not looking at anybody in particular.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't say anything because, glass houses and everything. But the Absorbaloff's, I guess, amazing ability was it could absorb and dissolve creatures straight into it, which is quite a scary thing, really, until they played it just for laughs. So the Absorbaloff has a broad British accent. He says stupid things, comes across as totally for comedy. It was one of those episodes where they were aiming for comedy, but to add insult to injury, do you know who designed the Absorbaloff, Dags?
I love the no.
It was kids on Blue Peter, a children's show over there. It was Design a Doctor Who Monster, and they showed all these amazing monsters. I haven't got pictures of them, but there was one called Sad Tony, which looked like a crying rat Max Rebo, which would have been much better. But they went with this guy, fat guy in a leather posing pouch, and Jodie Whittaker is not impressed by this one at all. Yeah, it's a bit.
It's a bit naff. Yeah, exactly right. Very good.
Now, this is an interesting creature. Of all the Doctor Who creatures, this has one of the lamest origins of a Doctor Who creature ever. This is the Sandman from the Doctor Who episode Sleep No More. Interestingly, it's one of those episodes that's done sort of found footage, and it's the only episode of Doctor Who that doesn't say Doctor Who and have an opening title sequence. And I can totally understand because the BBC would not want to put their name to this crap. This monster is actually made out of the eye snot from the corner of your eye. That's how this monster became a monster. So if you are sleeping and you have a little build up in the corner of your eye, could be one of these giant turd monsters are forming. So not one of the best monsters in Doctor Who, and probably one of the worst episodes of the new series. And Jodie Whittaker really didn't like this one. Yeah.
Yeah, righto. It's nothing but quality here. Somebody, hang on. Hang on. Whoop. Eye tripe. Yeah, exactly right. Lovely. Conjunctivitis. Yeah, exactly right. Very good. So with these eye monsters, I see what you mean. Very good. Boom tish. Oh, here we go.
Now, here's a bit of a controversial one. This was suggested by the Vile himself as one of the ones that should be one of the worst monsters in Doctor Who, but as sort of, I guess, one of the meanest. But we've changed it to one of the worst because what don't you do to iconic creatures and iconic designs, Dags? And when you do it, it always makes it worse.
You turn them into the Wiggles.
Exactly. You don't redesign them. You don't make them into Teletubby Daleks. You don't give them amazing Technicolor colors, and you don't give them hunched backs. And so someone's bright idea at the beginning of the Matt Smith series was, we're going to take the iconic Daleks and we're going to change them. Because, when you've taken something that's worked for 50 years, changing it is going to be popular with everyone, isn't it? Now, admittedly, if you shoot them from the right angle, they kind of look like normal Daleks, but they soon found when you shoot them from the side, they kind of look hunched back, and on the forums, they kind of called them fatlicks for a while because they just looked like they'd been eating at the pie drawer a bit too much. So these have made it on, not because they're particularly the worst monster ever, but it was a bad redesign. Now, they pretty much formalized these were the new Daleks, with these ones exterminating all of the old versions, only to be replaced with the old versions a couple of stories later, and they were never, ever spoken of ever again.
So what are you trying to say that Jodie thought of these, man?
Yeah, yuck. Not a good look for the Daleks. I think Jodie's been pretty spot on with her reactions so far.
I agree with Chrissy on this one. The Daleks were meant to be perfect and not to evolve. So yes, it makes no sense that they would change their own design for whatever reason. So very good.
Now, this by far, and it's one of those things that most fans, I guess, agree on, is probably the worst monster from the new series of Doctor Who. It is, of course, a talking frog. It's a talking frog. It's not an ordinary frog. It's a slightly large frog than your common garden variety of frog. So this frog is actually some kind of universe, but because of the magnificent writing of the current series, it's not exactly even really confirmed what the talking frog even is. And the worst thing about this, my son at the time this was shown was watching another series done by the BBC called The Worst Witch. And we saw an episode that had talking frogs, and it looks like the BBC just ripped off one of those frogs and used it as a cheap prop for the Doctor Who episode. So this is up there with the talking cactus as one of the weirdest and worst ideas for Doctor Who. And this one's going to get a really great reaction out of Jodie, I am sure.
Well, I'm going to say that frog is definitely very, very popular at French restaurants. What can I say? And Chrissy's just summed it up quite succinctly. So, yes, no dramas there whatsoever.
When you say it
very
that way, when you say it that way, it actually looks like Jodie is enjoying quite a nice frog's leg at a French restaurant, doesn't it?
Unbelievable. So what are you trying to tell me about all these Doctor Who monsters and Jodie's impression of them, old son?
Well, it means the Vial has gone through the era, looked at all the monsters, watched the episode, had a massive Doctor Who or Docky Who marathon, filed, sifted, reported back here, and with Jodie Whittaker has absolutely well and truly violated them.
Totally agree with you. Very good. Gavin's come up with the oldest joke in the book about, the frog about books. Oh, yeah, he's always said he's read it. Yeah, boom, tish. Very good. How about that? Yay, team. Docky Who stuff. That's not right. I can't put that on the screen. That's a bit wrong there, Mr. Moneybag Sullivan. Jody's like that. Unbelievable. Very, very good. Yes, Phil said he was about as polite as he could be on that episode. Indeedy, doody, doody. All right. Now, if you're sick to death, and not looking at myself here when I'm saying this about Docky Who, well, guess what? There's more of it.
Ooh, baby, do you know that's what...
All right, it's our famous eBay section, and I do believe we got more Docky Who stuff coming up, Mr. Aaron.
Yeah, last time we looked at bottom auction, so I guess it was a bit tricky for people because they were massively inflated auction house prices. We're going back to the grassroots of this segment. We're going back to Australian eBay. These are all Doctor Who items that were sold in the last couple of months on Australian eBay, and these are the sold purchased prices. So if you think you know what your Doctor Who merchandise is worth, chip in and see how close you get to these ones.
I'm with Andrew Reddy, 50 cents. Yep, that works for me. So there we go. All right, let's kick it off. Oh, no, friggin' Pops. What are you doing, mate?
More Pops, I know. I always give Dags some to choose from and some extra he can delete. And I thought this would be the one that you nixed, but obviously not. So we're starting off with a 12th Doctor Pop. It is the 12th Doctor in a spacesuit. It's I think it is a convention exclusive. So usually those ones go for a bit, but you know, Doctor Who is super popular, so we can just bank on this one going for hundreds of dollars.
It's kind of funny because the whole thing about the doctors and the numbers, right? The 9th, 10th, whatever. The fact that they actually use the full word. How often do you see the word 12th physically written out as a word? It's very, very rare, isn't it? So you could almost have a spelling quiz and say, how do you spell 12th? Because it's just the kind of thing you don't say very often. So
I know. You know, the kids would go, there's an elf in there somewhere, but I just don't know.
All right, Edge started with 50 cents. I don't know if you want us to stay with it or not, but we'll go with it for the time being. Guy says $65. It is an effing pop after all, kids. Mr. Phil's got 15. Bob has gone 30. I agree with you, Moneybags. Yes, exactly right. They're going to pay us the $50 to take it away. Here we go. Greg King, even Doctor Who pops are bloody $2 in the garage sale, and that's Docky Who, not Doctor Who. I better just correct myself right there. Kelvin's at 2. Jonathan's at 16. Colin's at 35. Where are we? Christie's at 112. Christy used to put in like 1 cent bids for some of the really cool items. He's actually got a decent price here. Violating the 12th Doctor is the vial at $20. What does it? Hang on, I've got a cough. Hang on, sorry guys.
No problem. I think
so that's what it's actually making me feel unhealthy. Yes, very, very cool. Where are we? Mark is at 150 and Gavin is at $12. All right, so what do you reckon it went for, kids? Good stuff. Doctor Who, the 12th Doctor in the spacesuit, mate. Whatever. It definitely would come under the heading of a useless pop. How much do you reckon it went for? Well, I reckon it would go for completely like loose change at the back of the couch, but instead it went for a whopping $550 effing dollars. What is the deal there, Mr. Aaron?
I do not know. It'll be one of those that was only available at a convention and there was only a limited number of them made. But I do agree with you. Pops are not a good investment of your money. Eventually, the pop market is going to burst and everyone is going to have all these, I don't know, little pop door stops or something like that. That is not a wise investment. That's a good guess from Mark, but you're still a lot shy of the 550.
Yeah, you got to cough up an extra 400 and something bucks, dude. There's that absolutely. I'm shaking my head over that seriously, but unbelievable. So is this setting the standard for the rest of the items to follow? Let's have a look.
This is an interesting one. Doctor Who, the Remembrance of the Daleks action figure set. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loose Doctor Who figures. There's a couple of popular Daleks there, and there's Ace and the 7th Doctor.
Very good. It's all very, very exciting. Condition is used. Make of that what you will. What does everybody think they went for? So, all right, enough of the text and the comments. I just need some prices, everybody. What does everybody think they went for? Remembrance of the Daleks action figure collection, Ace and Davros. Oh, yeah, I just realized he's right there in the middle there. Yeah, very cool. All right, guys, gone for 700. Bob's gone for no comment. I don't know what that means because I just said don't make any comments. Yeah, very, very cool. So Colin's at 335. Shane, he reckons gone for 400. Moneybag Sullivan is at 5 cents. I'm hearing there's like 1 cent for every item that's in the picture there, dude. I agree with you. Jonathan's at 180. Kelvin's at 150. Violating the Remembrance of the Daleks is the Vile. Is at 150. William's gone for 600. Bloody 600, really? Christie's at 250. Ange is at 20 cents. I'm hearing you, Ange. You'll probably get some change out of that. Mark is at 700. Gavin has gone for 793 plus 50 bucks. I can't do the maths on that. So 800 and something. And yes, very good stuff. And what do you reckon, kids? Remembrance of the Daleks action figure collection, right? Ace and Davros, and they have been used. So make of that what you will. All right, so how much do you reckon they went for? So looking there, you'd think it would be like loose change at the back of the couch, but it went for a whopping 400 bucks. Aaron, what is the deal?
Well, there's an interesting story here, and I don't know if I can tell it all because it might out someone on the thread. But you remember we had the Spankin's Guide to Slipping It In, how to buy collectibles and get them into the house without your significant other knowing. Someone on this thread may or may not have got me to buy this auction so it doesn't show up on their credit card and they can come into the shop and grab it off me when the coast is clear. I won't out anyone on this thread, though. No comment.
Well, I'm going to take I get it. Is that what that was? Very good, because I was going to say there is a certain person who got 400 bucks right on the hammer. So there you go. But yes, no comment. See, yes. Remember, fans, Spankin's Guide to Slipping It In is an absolute ripper. So if you ever need to find out how to get past your collectibles past your significant other without them knowing about it. But as we said, no comment. All right, move on.
Here's an interesting one. This is Doctor Who Limited Edition 50th Anniversary. It's a set of silver coins, basically. So a lot of people invest in precious metals. A lot of people collect popular culture. You put them together and you get collectible precious metals that are an investment because they're a collectible, and the metals go up in value. So these obviously are going to go for more than the price of just the silver in them, aren't they?
Very good. 50th anniversary. Yes, limited edition. Remember the words rare and limited edition and exclusive and collectible and all that usually attempt to push the price up, and sometimes they have the opposite effect. So indeedy doody doody, but you never know. Angie's gone for 150. Gavin's gone for 1,300. Bloody hell. Colin's at 650 bucks. Excuse me. What does everybody else think? Limited edition 50th anniversary. Silver coins and collectibles. Chrissy's gone for 479. Jonathan's at 450. Violating these coins is the Vile at 50 bucks. Guy's at 1,100. William is at 1,209. Kelvin, not a happy fan. $10 he reckons it looks awful. Maybe it could be the quality of the photo. You never know. Bob has said 600 Razoos. Yes, he can never knock back a Razoo. Very good stuff. What do you reckon, kids? Doctor Who limited edition 50th anniversary silver coin collectibles, looking particularly cool. So how much do you reckon they went for? Well, I don't know about you, but I reckon they went for a whopping 1,500 effing dollars. What is the deal with that, Mr. Aaron?
I know, this is my least favorite type of collectible because as a collector, I like to get one of everything, but I don't think these look amazingly good. And I don't want to pay that much just to complete my collection because they're silver coins. They did do a gold version, which goes for a whole heap more, but who has the money to buy Doctor Who gold coins? And the interesting thing is the makers of these, you know, they're onto a good thing because they don't just do Doctor Who. They do every single collectible you can think of, from Star Wars to Lord of the Rings to Back to the Future. And they're really just trying to expand who gets the silver coins. Like, I always thought coin and stamp collecting was on the way out. And this is their last desperate gasp to get new people into the community, I think.
Yeah, $1,500 is a lot of money on these things, isn't it? So you do have to wonder what the mindset is for it. So, well, people got money to burn, and yes, Gavin did get it, but he was $200 short. But there you go, very cool. Oh, here we go, the 13th. Here she is as a Barbie doll. Maybe they should make a movie out of her.
I have the 13th Dr. Barbie doll. You had to pre-order them because they sold out. Mine is still sealed in the shipper container as well, so it's even in nicer condition than that one because that crap ain't coming out of the box in my collection, but I still have it. So this is one of those interesting things that crosses over from doll collectors to Barbie collectors to Doctor Who collectors. So it should cast a wide net from the amount of people that are going to bid on it and want it.
Totally agree with you. All right, very, very cool. So straight away, you didn't even have to think about it. Shane has gone for $5 rather. Angie's at 110. Christy, the 1 cent, has finally made an appearance, which is absolutely fantastic. Guy said 250. Jonathan, the 13 cents. Oh, very good, 13 cents. I got that. Bob is at 350. Colin is at 700. Kelvin is at minus 13. Oh, geez, no. So, Moneybag Sullivan, 1 cent. Come on, guys, what's the deal with that? Hang on, I got a cough. Bloody hell, it's making me feel sick just thinking about it. Okay, the violating the 13th Doctor is the vile, as one should, is $2,000. Gavin has said 13 cents, so there's two people at 13 cents. And William's at a minus 100. Oh, bloody hell. Phil has decided to slip in at $45. And Marcus said $500. So one of two things could happen. It either went for absolutely nothing, or somebody said, oh, yeah, I've got to get myself one of those. Very, very cool. And Phil's actually got one. How groovy is that? Good stuff. All right, so the Doctor Who Barbie doll, 13th Doctor. It is limited. Remember, you always use those words to sort of make things more valuable than what they really are. I personally actually think it's quite good myself. So there you go. So how much do you reckon she went for? She went for a whopping $260. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
I'm happy. I think I paid $89 for it when it came out. So I'm in the black on that one. Like the silver coins I bought have probably dropped in value.
Good stuff. Well, there you go. How about that? So 260 is probably not too bad, actually. So, yeah, I think that's all pretty good stuff. And yes, Guy, yes, well done to you. Good. I got to admit, when they mix up the Barbie dolls and they do different themed things with them, like they did with Star Trek and whatever else, they can actually look really, really grippy. So there you go. End of days. Absolutely love it. All right, last item. Everybody needs one of these in their house. Look at that.
Now, this is an interesting one. The Doctor Who TARDIS. This is a full-size TARDIS. It could be disassembled and moved. It was up in Sydney. I momentarily thought about maybe I need a TARDIS in the house, and then I thought, but maybe I should stay married as well. Now, I know there's a few people on tonight who have built their own TARDIS, and they are not cheap to build. They're actually an expensive piece of furniture. So picking one up on eBay could be a good way to do it. So how much do you think a TARDIS would go for? It'd be good for storage, wouldn't it? Because it's bigger on the inside.
Well, exactly right. You put all your Doctor Who collectibles in there. I've got to say, this looks pretty groovy, but of course, not everybody can have one of those because the damn thing is quite large.
Yeah.
But in this particular picture, it looks good. I assume it's a pickup only. I can't imagine trying to ship this out anywhere. And you are right. Some people have built their own, and I guess you'd have to sort of have a look and go, well, okay, how accurate is it, or is it just some jerry rig thing that someone's done? So they're built in 1995. Oh, and it's got light on the top and the doors. Oh, very, very groovy. It's like a lot of things. I'd love to have one, but of course, there's no room for it. And as you said, it's a bit impractical. Alrighty, Guy has gone for 16 grand. Holy guacamole! Gavin's upped it up the extra 1,000 to 17. Bob's at 2,000. Christie's at 11,500. Colin $200. Oh, going the cheap route. 1,500 for Jonathan. Kelvin's at 1,100. Oh, sorry, just 1,000. Very, very cool. Good stuff. $1 million ruse. Oh, Ange, how's that? You'd have to get a screen use one for $1 million. Williams at 5,000. I agree with Moneybag Solomon, a bit awesome at a party. $50 for him. Violating the police boxes, the vial at 3,500. And Marcus said $2,000 because that's where he would live if he bought it. Very good. If it's full size, it would be too high to fit most houses. Yeah, exactly right. Funnily enough, we ran a convention. We were going to put a TARDIS in the. I think it was a TARDIS in the display area, and we had to measure the roof to see if it would fit. And Phil has gone for $1,500. I've got to say, at least the picture looks very, very groovy. Yes, indeedy doody didy from 1995. Bloody hell. All right, so what do you reckon it went for? It's a full-size TARDIS replica. Absolutely fantastic. Something that all Doctor Who fans need to have in their collection. How much you reckon it went for? 3 bids. It could be living in someone's house even as we speak. It went for a whopping $500. They're chucking them away.
Now, that was too cheap. And I think it comes down to what a couple of people have said. It's too tall to go in an average room because it's such a huge piece of furniture. I was watching this, and when I sort of saw the next day it had only gone for $500, I was actually a bit miffed because I would have paid more than that for it and sent you and Chad up in a van to go and collect it and film your experience for an amazing magical mystery tour video. Wouldn't that have been amazing?
Yes. It's very funny because in the previous item, which we had prior to this, Mark said 500. He would have got it right on the money, but that's not for that. For this one, this is for something else. I think Colin gets it because he's just got to cop up an extra $300 and he's good to go.
There you go. The president of a Star Trek fan club now owns the TARDIS. He's like going multiverse, isn't he?
I love it. Well, they do time travel in Star Trek. So there you go, Cole. An extra $300 and it's all yours. So, but I agree with you. Yeah, it's great as it is. It's not entirely practical. So very good there, Mr. Aaron. What do you reckon?
Well, as Phil said, that was actually the one from Who Central up in Sydney. So I don't know why they're getting rid of their TARDIS. That's surely an amazing piece of prop replica for people to come and see in the shop. Maybe they have multiple TARDI.
Or they're very good. Either that, or they've decided to get another one which is in newer condition. After all, 1985 is a long, long time ago. Very good, very good. You can deliver it to the new Who cave. Oh, I like the sound of that. Very, very good. All right, so we're going to go on a completely, slightly different tangent. Got to do a little bit of commercial time, bit of advertising. And now today, of course, is the 10th of August, which is particularly groovy. And believe it or not, 1 month from today, the 10th of September, of course, is the Raiders of the Lost Empire Gala dinner. So it's exactly 1 month from today. They're still selling tickets. It is going to be a big, spectacular banquet event celebrating Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Empire Strikes Back turning 40 years old. I know it's hard to believe all those decades have gone past. They're still selling tickets. It's 1 month from today. Now, as a previous organizer to a lot of these banquets, I've got to say, from first-hand experience, they are awesome nights to go to. You've got fantastic meals, lots of great entertainment. And there's auctions going aplenty, including some custom-made items made for the show. You get all dressed up, you have a really good night. And these things are so few and far between now, these sort of events, that you really need to check them out. Aaron's got a ticket, I've got a ticket, and it is going to be an absolute blast and a half. So, yes, we highly recommend it. It's the kind of thing where people say, oh, yeah, it's like $60 to go. It's a bit of money, but these are really unique things that occur once in a blue moon. The last event like this was 5 years ago, and after this, who knows when the next one will be. So if you're a fan of Raiders and you're a fan of Star Wars, get your duds out, whether you be costumed or just formal dress, and turn up for the night and have a swell of a good time. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron?
Well, when I bought my ticket, they said there was only 8 tickets left. So getting quick because I think it will sell out. Is it like I could imagine it being, very formal like a wedding when you sit there and they have alternate plates for people. So someone gets the steak, someone gets the chicken, someone
Yeah.
gets the steak. Can you imagine though if you're sitting there and you get the snake surprise and someone gets the steak, and then you get the monkey brains and someone gets the pav? Wouldn't you be a bit pissed?
Just a little bit. Very, very good. Shouldn't there be next one in the year for Jedi? There should be, but there probably won't be. So these events are now fewer and far between. Back in the 1990s, they were practically happening every year, or even sometimes a couple of times a year. These days, the world is a little bit different. These events take a fair bit to organise, and they don't happen as often as they should. So if you've been to them before and you go, "Oh, I'd love to go to one again," this is definitely something worth looking at. And I can tell you from first-hand knowledge, there's been a lot of custom-built displays for this. Fantastic photo opportunities. Is going to look very, very schmick. So you need to check it out. Don't leave it any longer, kiddies. So there you go. And before I forget, don't forget to check us out on our socials. Whether you be an Instagram or a Twitter person or any of that sort of stuff, stay abreast with all the latest and the greatest things happening within the Sci-Fi Zone universe, which is particularly cool stuff. So what do you reckon there, Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was delayed from last year, the dinner, wasn't it, as well?
It was meant to have actually occurred last year because it was like for celebrating Empire and Raiders turning 40, and it got postponed by like 8 or 9 months. So it's finally come around. Yeah, it's going to be here, and it should be an absolute blast of a good time there. And Aaron's on my table, so we've got our table sorted out. I'm just going to have the vial on there as well, and we're just going to be sitting back and having a great night. So party.
If you're one of the rejects on table 9, you can come over and say hi, but you can't sit at our table. You've got to go back.
Yeah, exactly right. Sorry, we don't serve your kind here, as it were. So very, very cool. All right, now, for all you Docky Who nerds out there, get yourselves excited, all right, because it is now time for our presentation. Now, like last week, when we did the first part of this, I made a point of disappearing because I thought I've got nothing to say, I've got nothing to contribute. And guess what? I'm going to do the same thing again. So, Mr. Aaron, all over.
Well, it's lucky that I can speak about Doctor Who enough for both of us, isn't it? This is our second part of our look at the Colin Baker years of Doctor Who, mainly the merchandise, but a bit of the culture and what was going on during this time period. This surprised me because I didn't think Colin Baker would take 2 episodes. I actually thought Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, the 6th and 7th Doctor, we'd get done on one night. But because of what was happening with the show and behind the scenes, there was enough to stretch this for 2 episodes and make both of them really interesting. So we left on a bit of a cliffhanger last week where the show had been violated by Michael Grade, and Doctor Who fans were up in arms. They were smashing their TV sets and refusing to pay the TV license fee that they have in the UK. And if you were a collector of newspaper cuttings, it was a fantastic time because every single newspaper over there had all of these stories about Doctor Who, one of the best programs the BBC had ever come up with, being cancelled. And this sort of affected the merchandise and the mood of the fans as well. So it caused a bit of a division, which, can you believe it? Fandom in a division, with some people loving Doctor Who and loving what was happening, and other people baying for blood, and the production team needed to change, and everything was horrible. So it was an interesting time in fandom, and we're going to look at some of the merchandise and some of the stuff that was happening during this time. Last week we ended up with the song Doctor in Distress. It was basically like Live Aid, but for Doctor Who to save it. The money didn't go to Doctor Who, of course. It went to cancer relief, which a lot of people seem to forget. It wasn't the Doctor Who team trying to raise money for making new Doctor Who. But it was an interesting I guess, misfire of a song where the good intentions were there, but there was nothing else. And during the week, I got this message. What is this Doctor Who charity song you mentioned? Can it be found online? From David Meldrum. So up the top there's a couple of screenshots for it, but we thought we'll squeeze in a little bit of the actual music and see if we can not get like a copyright strike for it. So here is a little bit of Doctor in Distress.
Doctor in distress. That's all answer is SOS. Doctor in distress. Bring him back now, we
So as you can see, that was wall to wall with C-grade 80s celebrities. And it also kind of shows you why you want the caliber of Bob Geldof or Michael Jackson to do these songs and not, I guess, people like Bucks Fizz and Black Velvet. So we promise we won't be playing any more of that, but we thought we'd put it in just so you could, yes, we won't play more, we promise. Interestingly, while I was researching this show, there have been covers of Doctor in Distress, and there is Doctor in Distress, the 2022 version, which basically is the same song, but it's got a whole lot of quotes from Chris Chibnall slipped into it as well. So if you want to check that out, you can find it on YouTube. Now we're going to keep going with what was happening during the hiatus. Now, as a kid, I didn't even know what a hiatus was. Doctor Who was teaching me all these new real life words. The hiatus was for 18 months. Usually there was probably a series of Doctor Who every year. But between Colin Baker's first 2 seasons, there was an 18-month gap. But that didn't mean there was no merchandise or no other versions of Doctor Who. And the first thing that kind of happened was Radio 4 jumped on the Doctor Who production team and said, we'll support Doctor Who. We'll do a radio version of it. They were launching a new show called Pirate Radio, and Doctor Who was one of the flagships of that. So even though they weren't making Doctor Who on TV, there was a radio program. And of course, the radio show spawned its own merchandise. You can see there was a Target novelization of the book, and then there was radio clippings. And in that picture there is one of the few items of Doctor Who merchandise I've never had. There's a Doctor Who BBC transcription disc of the actual radio play. Now, transcription discs were special records that were pressed and sent out to different BBC outposts around the world so they could play the shows. So not only would they have music on, but they'd have actual, DJ comments and things like that. And there's a transcription disc of Slipback, which this was called, and must be one of the rarest Doctor Who pressings ever, because there's only a handful of them, because they'd get sent out to Micronesia or something like that, and then they'd get sent to another island in the middle of the Pacific, and not a lot of them ended up in fan collections. It's only when a radio vinyl library is sold up that these things turn up in the market. So I saw a couple of them, how much they've gone for while I was researching this, and you're not going to find them under about $500. So for something like that, if you find one in a cheap record shop, you're doing pretty well. If we go to the next slide, there was other merchandise related to this, and the BBC released it with Genesis of the Daleks, which was another audio that had been released previously, and I guess by having the Daleks and Davros on it, it probably was going to make the new one sell better. It's been released a few times over the years. It's been released on the BBC Classic Collection, and they've also released it on tape, CD, and other formats. You've got some magazines over the years that have looked at the production of the radio show. Ultimately, it wasn't a huge success. I've always thought Doctor Who is a more visual medium, even though a lot of the times the sets wobble and the monsters look like they need to be violated. But you still have an interest in this. And of course, those who are into Big Finish and their productions prove me wrong, because they've released a squillion audio dramas over the years, including New Adventures with Colin Baker and Missing Adventures that were meant to be made during this period but never saw the light of day. So even though it was a footnote in the history of Doctor Who, there's been a few items released for Slipback, the radio play that was produced during the hiatus. Now, the other thing that happened during this time and didn't slow down was there were Doctor Who exhibitions. Now, there are some famous Doctor Who exhibitions that have run over the years. There is Longleat, and there was the Dapple exhibition, and there's been other ones with the modern series in Cardiff, Wales. But probably the one that ran for the longest and had the most support and even came back from the new series was the Blackpool exhibition, which is Blackpool in the UK is a popular beach destination, and a lot of people go there at summer, and a lot of people grew up having happy memories going to Blackpool, not just for Doctor Who, but just as summer holidays. Doctor Who had been a staple of the Blackpool Mile, which is where a lot of the tourist attractions are, since 1974. And you can see in some of the pictures there that it started as a BBC exhibition that had some Doctor Who stuff in, but Doctor Who was, of course, the most popular thing, with the monsters and robots and Daleks and props. So before too long, it was a dedicated Doctor Who exhibition. And there was an exhibition there every year through the 70s and 80s. And you can see in some of the artwork, as it got more sophisticated, it looks originally like sort of fan drawings, and then got more professional and photographs and BBC promotion stuff. So by the time it got to Colin Baker, you can see it had quite a following. And in the bottom there, you can see you've got John Pertwee opening it one year, and then Tom Baker another year. We've also got a real ticket stub there, and also a sticker saying, or a badge maybe saying, I attended the Doctor Who exhibition at Blackpool. Because if you wore that to school, you'd be the coolest person there and definitely not get beaten up, wouldn't you, Dags? Let's go to the next slide. And here we are when we come through to the 80s. And by the 80s, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there that it was quite a popular event, with looks like thousands of people turning up for the openings. Usually they were opened by the current Doctor and a couple of his companions. And you can see there, this is what happened with Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant when they opened Blackpool one year, and were pretty much mobbed. Some of the interesting things I found while researching this episode was a video by the Doctor Who Appreciation Society where they attended, and they had access to some of the original costumes and props. And what do you do if you've got access to a Sea Devil? They put the costume on, and they actually walked down to the water and recreated the Sea Devil coming out of the water, which for a museum prop, I guess at the time it wasn't as old and fragile as it is now, but I would have thought that was the last thing that an exhibition would let a group of fans go and do. But you can find that on YouTube, and it did actually happen. So there you go. Yeah, I think Dags has multiples of those in his wardrobe, actually. I think he has one saying, I attended the Rip It Off the Card Doctor Who specials and survived. If we go to the next slide, this is some of the things you could have expected to see in the exhibition. And you've got the Mestor there, which was the new monster for the year, which we looked at last week in the Vile File. And you've got the Malice and a rather deflated Sea Devil. You've got a Dalek, which is a Sentry Dalek, and you've got a Cyberman. So these were all more current series things that were on display during the time of the Colin Baker era. And as a kid, I would have absolutely loved to go and be able to see something like that. In Australia, there really was not the opportunity to see this kind of thing. In all the years of growing up, I remember maybe a Star Wars exhibition at Maya once, and later when I was more of an adult at Science Works, they'd have a few things. But it would have been amazing growing up in the UK and being able to go to these things every year and see the current Doctor Who monsters. And that's why a lot of fans in the UK have very happy memories of this time. Now, importantly, what's the best thing about any exhibition? It's the shop at the end. And like a lot of these things, they're forgotten to time, where everyone takes photos of what's on display and what's the monsters, and not what's available in the shop at the end. But I did find a videotape on YouTube where someone had filmed the whole exhibition one year and hadn't stopped filming when they get to the shop. So you could see there was quite a range of Doctor Who merchandise, and most of this stuff was never available in Australia at all. You've got a lot of badges and smaller things that are obviously sort of pocket money value for kids to buy. And you've also got things like the Palitoy Talking Dalek from the 70s, and the Dennis Fisher TARDIS, which is all from the 70s. And you've got 80s t-shirts and canines and money boxes and things like that. So they did have a lot of things there for sale, and this was from the 80s, so a lot of 70s stuff was still getting turned over at the time. What I do really love is that sign there is absolutely authentic and was filmed in the video, and I managed to get a screen cap of it, and it was, anyone found shoplifting will be exterminated by the sentry Dalek that was by the shop there. So that is quite cool. Is quite a rudimentary sign, but that's one of the things that makes these things a joy to look back on and remember, because that's all part of what fandom's about, really. So if you were in America, though, don't worry, there was a Doctor Who exhibition there, because even though the BBC was saying the show was not popular and no one wanted to see it and they wanted to kill it, it was taking off massively in America, and it was taken off to such an extent that there was a Doctor Who tour of the whole of America where they took a whole lot of props over in a massive semi-trailer. The semi-trailer was custom painted with these amazing airbrush designs by Andrew Skilleter. And they took this truck to most of the capitals of all the states, and it was an amazingly popular tour. You can see on the top right-hand corner there's an advert on PBS there where you could buy advance tickets for when the truck was coming to your town to go and see the Doctor Who exhibition that was traveling around. This is almost inconceivable to me as a fan in Australia, where, the Doctor Who exhibition was the book section in Minotaur Books and Space Age Books when it was still around. And there was nothing here like this at all. So it really does show, if there was enough interest for this tour to happen in America, Doctor Who had taken off and was quite popular there. The producer went over with Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant, also Janet Fielding, to launch the tour. And there was a selection of merchandise that was available for this tour, and it is now impossibly hard to find because it was very disposable. Caps and T-shirts and badges and things like that. And I'm not even sure if everything sold has actually been documented, but we're going to have a look at some of the stuff that was available now. A shame no Doctor Who Expo in Australia, apart from a small one, the series ABC Ultimate Studio Doctor Who Festival. They're all a bit more recent, though. There really was no classic stuff here at all. So this is some of the stuff that was available at the show. And what is interesting, I didn't know about a lot of this stuff, but Andrew Skilleter, who's the artist who did it, you can see in the bottom right there, actually released recently an art package on stuff based on the tour. So you can see that's the side of the van, which is an amazing space scene with the Death Zone and Rassilon's Tower from the Five Doctors in it, and some amazing artwork. And that's him standing next to the Doctor Who sign from the tour. I think that was on the steps that let people go up into the van. You had that big Doctor Who sign, and you can see there's a mug with a box, and I don't think I've ever seen the boxed mug before from the American tour. And there was T-shirts. You can see the one in the middle there that's light blue with the TARDIS and, again, the American tour logo. There was custom bags, and I think maybe once I've seen one of these for sale on eBay. So it really does show you there is stuff out there that you don't know about and rarely turns up. It still surprises me. And then you can see also in that picture some of the artwork and unique stuff that was available through the tour they reissued through Who Dares and sold recently. And I think that sold out as well. So some very interesting artwork. It's very evocative of the 80s and the time, different eras, and the 60s art is very of the 60s and the 70s as well, and the 80s is a lot more airbrushed, and then the 90s, I guess it gets a lot more photorealistic. But some interesting stuff there, especially if you collect international stuff. Yeah, the US tour bag, I think I've seen once on eBay, and for an empty plastic bag went for hundreds of dollars. So here's some interesting stuff. We fast forward a little bit to now, but the map there shows where in America the tour went, and you can see it hit probably 90% of America. There's some of the states there on the left that it didn't get to, but it really did tour around everywhere. So it surprised me, because when I saw it, I thought, oh, maybe it went to a couple of cities like LA and New York and stayed there for a while, but it really did tour all over America. There's more of the art for the tour down the bottom there. There were tour programs, which I don't think I've ever seen. I've only seen this with the Who Dares website offering reissues, so I don't know if they're legitimately available in the 80s or not. But here's the really interesting thing. There's a couple of pictures there of a really faded old van. And this was discovered. The actual Doctor Who tour van has been turned into someone's house, and there's people living in it. So there you go. That would be one of the most ultimate Doctor Who collectibles ever. And if Mark's doing up a Who cave, you could almost get that van and do your Who cave inside that, because that would be a collectible Who cave with Doctor Who collectibles inside. So that's pretty cool. You can see there isn't a lot of pictures of what was actually in there. You can see in the middle there, it's quite a small picture because it was low res. There was a replica of the TARDIS console, and the rondels in the background all had holographic pictures in, which again is very of the period when sort of everything was released as a hologram. So I don't know if anyone, I don't really remember seeing anyone having visited it or having photos of it, but it would have been an amazing experience to do at the time. And, you know, as sort of a 12-year-old at the time, if Doctor Who van had rocked up in Australia, I would have wanted to go every weekend, even if it was kind of a average display inside. So something that only kind of happened then. Yes, there's been other options of time travel other than the TARDIS in Doctor Who, but too many to go into, I guess. The Daleks, of course, have made time machines as well. The other thing that happened during the hiatus and also during the production of Doctor Who is pantomimes starring Doctor Who stars. Now, this is really interesting because pantomimes is not something that's traditional in Australia, but in the UK, it is something that happens around Christmas, and you get a lot of huge stars doing stuff, and they literally say they do it to embarrass themselves and have a bit of fun, because pantomimes are notorious for being, you know, a bit crap, and but they're done it in this sort of the spirit of being like that. So they've become tradition. And JNT, John Nathan Turner, who was the producer of Doctor Who at the time, controversially often pressured his stars to be in his pantomimes during the off months from Doctor Who. So there are some stories where you've got the Doctor Who stars rehearsing Doctor Who during the day and then driving down to do pantomimes in the evening and the weekend for JNT. Now, that must have been very distracting if you were trying to make Doctor Who, but he made it work. And there is a lot of merchandise that is sort of peripheral Doctor Who collectibles, because there's many Doctor Who stars that were in pantomimes. And you can see there's some of the programs there from Cinderella and Jack and the Beanstalk and Puss in Boots and Aladdin. And there aren't many pictures that you can find of these, and most of the ones that you see are the same ones you see everywhere. But there's a colour one up the top there with Mary Tam as Prince Charming. She was Romana in Doctor Who. And you've also got Colin Baker and Anthony Ainsley, who was the Master. You've got in one of those dresses, it's hard to see because, again, they're very small pictures, is Serverland from Blake Seven played the fairy godmother, which would have been awesome to behold, Jacqueline Pearce. And down the bottom there, again, we've got Colin Baker and Mary Tam and Nicola Bryant. And an amazing one there I found of Colin Baker in drag as Widow Twanky from one of the pantomimes that he did as well. So anyone ever wanted to see Colin Baker in drag, there you go. Now, this fasts forward a few years, but I've decided to include this now because it does sort of fit in with pantomimes and stage shows. Now, after Doctor Who was cancelled, there was a big Doctor Who stage show, and it originally ran with John Pertwee as the Doctor. But during one of his performances, he had to stop the show because he couldn't go on, and he was replaced by his understudy, who was David Banks, the cyber leader from Doctor Who, played a unique version of the Doctor for a couple of performances, but he was hurriedly replaced with Colin Baker. And fans were really appreciative of this because Colin Baker by this time had had a raw deal with the BBC. He had been fired after his second series as the Doctor. It had been quite a public fiasco with him criticizing the BBC, and there was a lot of fallout in fandom. And so for him to come back and play the Doctor again was kind of one of those things that no one expected so soon after this happening. And apparently it was a very different version from the John Pertwee version, but it was a great version. And Colin obviously has quite an amazing stage presence because he is one of those actors that can act it up and be quite loud. And there was merchandise that was available for the Doctor Who Ultimate Adventure. You can see there's programs and badges and caps and hats, and there is a hard to find postcard of John Pertwee, not Colin Baker, because he didn't like it, so he apparently tried to stop them selling it. He thought it didn't make him look heroic. And there's also more recent put out by the Reliquary, some prop fragments from the Ultimate Adventure, and I actually had one of the balls off a Dalek from that I sold to them, that they eventually mounted and resold. And one of the things that I think is really cool, and I didn't know this had happened, Big Finish remounted the Ultimate Adventure, and Colin Baker performed it as an audio play with the songs in. And it was so popular, they made a sequel, and the sequel is called Beyond the Ultimate Adventure, which is kind of a nice reference to other pop culture. And those who get it will have a bit of a laugh. So yeah, there was the Ultimate Adventure stage play. So Colin Baker, even after Doctor Who and having a rough deal, has always been willing to come back to the role and perform in these kind of things and have some very colourful merchandise associated with it. Now, here's one of my favourite things to do with 80s Doctor Who, because although I criticise my son for getting home and getting on the computer and staying there till he goes to bed at night, I used to do the same thing. It's just the computer games I was playing were much, much cooler than the ones that are available now in my head. Doctor Who was an early target for video game adaptations, and there'd already been ones we'd looked at in the Peter Davison episodes of this show, but the Colin Baker ones were probably my favourites, and the best one of all, in my opinion, was Doctor Who and the Mines of Terror. And this was because it was a good game, and it was a complex game, made you think, and it was very hard to complete. In fact, I completed about a quarter of it because researching this episode, I found that walkthrough map. You can see the map of the whole game, which is on the middle and the top right there. And that map, I remember thinking I had just about completed the game because I got out of the mines, which are the bottom left quarter of the game. So there was a lot of the game that I didn't even complete. Now, Doctor Who and the Mines of Terror was a surefire hit. It was going to be a hit for the publishers, and it was ported into a lot of different systems. I had the Commodore 64 version. I've got a couple of different versions. Just behind me there, you can see I've got the Amstrad version. We're going to look at a couple of the different screens and a couple of the different pieces of merchandise associated with the Mines of Terror. So for anyone who grew up with gaming in the 80s, Zap 64 was the magazine of choice. It was the one that was out from the UK, had all the coolest reviews, and usually they were on the money with how they reviewed the games. So issue 13 with the zombies on the top left corner there is the issue of Zap 64 that reviewed Doctor Who and the Mines of Terror. Now, they were usually quite harsh critics, and they gave it quite a good score. It's too small for me to see, but I think it was about 80% or 83%, which put it in the top percentage of games that they reviewed. It was a good game, and most people who played it thought it was a pretty amazing game, especially for the time. Famously, the producers, though, put all the advertising in the wrong place, and that was they put it in regular gaming magazines where, you know, kids were looking for stuff like Pac-Man or Elite or other games like that, where if they had advertised in Doctor Who magazine, which they didn't, or even give free copies for Doctor Who magazine to review, which they didn't, they would have probably saved themselves a whole lot of stress by advertising other places, and the game kind of bombed because it didn't find the market. Now, there's some screenshots there of different versions of the game, and some of them I had never seen because the opening scenes and screens on different versions of the game have different pictures. Some are in color, some are more colorful than others. There's reviews on other versions of the game. So if you are collecting Doctor Who gaming stuff, you can track down all these magazines, and it's much easier to find the issue of the magazine. And as a collector, it's much easier to go Zap 64 issue 13 and find a cheap copy rather than go Doctor Who and the Mines of Terror, because that's what all sort of Doctor Who fans are looking for. So if you want a collector's tip for collecting magazines, and this isn't just gaming magazines, it's for all Doctor Who related stuff, try and find the issue of the magazine that the article or the picture that you want is in, and then look for that without Doctor Who. And often if you can find that, no one else will bid on it. So if you look for the Mad magazine with the Doctor Who cover, it might cost you 20 or 30 pounds. But if you look for Mad magazine 121, it might cost you £3 or £4 because it hasn't got that sort of loaded for Doctor Who fans in the title that often makes these things go for more. So there's a tip for collecting magazines. Find out the issue that the articles are in and look for the issue rather than the actual title. Here are some different versions. Now, this is a really interesting one because this is a version that I found the pictures of, and it by far looked the most impressive version, and it was never released. So that one on the top right was going to be released on the Spectrum, but it did so poorly on all the other gaming platforms that they decided they weren't going to put the money into releasing it. Down the bottom there's the load screen for Commodore 64, which I had to put because everyone who grew up with a Commodore remembers the blue on blue load screens for a lot of games. And then there's the all green one for people who didn't have color monitors as well. So I think that's the BBC Micro on a green monitor version. So if you collect gaming, it is quite hard to find all the different versions of the Doctor Who and the Mines of Terror, and it's also hard to find them complete because it came loaded with instructions and cards and hint books and other things that added onto it. You could get it on Commodore on disc and also on dataset, and on the other systems it came with different features as well. If you bought it for BBC Micro, it came with an expansion memory pack that you had to plug into the computer to get it to actually play. So if you're familiar with newer systems like the 64, something like Zelda or Donkey Kong came with an extra plug-in to expand the memory. Doctor Who was doing that in the 80s. So it was obviously a game that pushed the limits of the system that it was on, and it was a cool game, but it still bombed. There were some other Doctor Who games that came out during the Colin Baker period. There's Doctor Who and the Warlords, and that's an interesting one because I managed to find a picture of one on the backing card, and I've never really seen one sold like that, but I was trawling through YouTube and there was an advert for it, and I was managed to get a screen grab off the advert for a carded version. So that's just another thing I now have to track down because I thought having the standard version was fine, but it came on a card. The other one there is Dr. Watt, and it is obviously one of those things that has got around the Doctor Who license by changing the name. Even though it has a pretty blatant TARDIS on it, the monsters in it look suspiciously like Daleks, and when you regenerate you turn into Dr. When, Dr. How, but never Doctor Who. It is one of those things that I found quite recently. It was one of those pieces of merchandise that slipped by me for years and years and years, but once you know about it, it is one of those things. If you look for Dr. When, you find it. If the people selling it just managed to put Doctor Who parody in the title, more people would be able to find it easier. But that's out there. You can see that was a sort of collect and unlock puzzles adventure. Doctor Who and the Warlords is one of those interesting games that was just a text adventure. So you load it all up and then you basically read a story, and at the end of the paragraph, it asks you what you want to do. And depending on what you want to do, it takes you to a different version of what happens next. So basically an electronic version of Choose Your Own Adventure. So there's some of the amazing Doctor Who games that were available in the 80s. And I think they're quite a cool area of collecting. So we're getting more onto the home stretch here, where we've come forward a few years. Doctor Who was being released on VHS during Colin Baker's era. Interestingly, Colin Baker's stories weren't seen as the most popular at the time. So while his era was on, a lot of the stories being released were from previous eras of Doctor Who. And his era was not really completed to a lot later. The first release for him was Vengeance on Varos, which was from his first series and considered one of his better stories. And the BBC, as the BBC does, never released Doctor Who in order. They would jump all over the place and from different eras. So it took right to the end of the Doctor Who video range to complete the Colin Baker era on VHS. There were a couple of special releases there. You can see the TARDIS tin, which was Trial of a Time Lord. And the TARDIS tin was interesting because on the bottom of each tin, there was a little biography about a doctor. And you could get a random one from 1 to 6. So if you really wanted to be a completist, you had to buy 6 different versions of it to get one of each of the pictures on the bottom of the tin. I just bought one with Colin Baker on. Over the years, I have picked up a couple of the others with my favourite doctors on, but it was an expensive piece at the time. And for me to say I wanted to buy 6 different versions of Trial of a Time Lord just to get the package differences, that was a bit impossible for me. The videos were of variable quality. When VHS started, they were often higher quality tapes than towards the end of the run. During the Colin Baker era, what they kind of did was have premium tapes and cheap tapes. So you'd often see on the back of Doctor Who magazine the premium tapes, and then I think it was at Woolworths over there they would have the cheap tapes. And what used to annoy me, some of the tapes released were only at Woolworths, and I think the Twin Dilemma, which was Colin Baker's first story, was originally only released through Woolworths, which was an incentive to buy from there and get the cheaper tapes. And that was always a bit of a hard one to find in Australia until it was sort of reissued a few years later. That is all the Colin Baker tapes there because he didn't have a huge era. So if you're collecting VHS, he is one of the easiest eras to complete. I've got 2 of the tins at the moment. I don't have all of them. And of course, we've got the DVD and the Blu-ray releases. And again, the Colin Baker era was released all over the place. And again, Vengeance of Varos came out first, and then they did a special edition of it later because it's one of those weird things that happened with the VHS range. And the DVD range, but the VHS range, they released all the good titles first, and then by the end of the range, what was left was kind of the dregs. So as the format died, the sales went right down because it was only the average stories left. With the DVD range, they tried to balance this by releasing classic stories and then not so well regarded stories. But some of the ones they released early in the range were released later because the Doctor Who DVD range has to be the best range of TV DVDs for extras and behind the scenes material, where a lot of shows like Star Trek often get a documentary for the entire series. Because Doctor Who was released a story at a time, every single one of them had a reconstruction, special feature packages, documentaries on the making of it, extended scenes, behind the scenes stuff, commentaries and things like that. So they are well regarded, even if the stories aren't great, as being some of the best produced Doctor Who, best produced DVDs ever done. And that was mainly because the restoration team obviously were fans, so were able to do it at a cut price cost. So a lot of this wouldn't be affordable to other DVD ranges. It also meant, though, when the line took off, that the earlier releases that didn't have as many behind the scenes extras and all that sort of love and care put into them were released as special editions with an extra disc later. And Colin Baker, I think you had Vengeance of Varos, the first release, was also one of his last releases where they did the special edition of it. We've just had the Blu-ray release of season 21. They'd already released season 22. And again, you see them on the side there. And the Blu-ray releases are those interesting sort of media where even though they're new, they sell out pretty quick and they tend to go for hundreds of dollars a couple of months after they've sold out. So if you do collect Blu-ray, much better to stump up your $80 in JB Hi-Fi than wait a couple of months to see what they're going for. The first couple of releases were $80 in JB Hi-Fi, and it's pretty hard to get them under $500-600, which is a big hike for Blu-rays of something that's currently available. You would think with Doctor Who they'd produce the amount that they could sell, because then the BBC would make the money rather than scalpers reselling them on eBay, but they've obviously decided they want to do a run that they know sells out, so they don't have anything left over, and it's a successful range for them. I do hope they get through to the end of the series before physical media dies. I think they're really going to try to, but who knows? The last couple of years, it's really been cut down, the release rate, because worldwide there's less factories pressing DVDs and Blu-rays. So when you get something like the BBC wanted to do a specialist TV show, or you get a big blockbuster that wants to produce like 1 million of something, Doctor Who often gets pushed back. I think I don't know if it's hearsay. I think it's true. I know the Italian part of it is true. Doctor Who got bumped back quite a bit because of COVID, because the pressing plant was in Italy, and Italy was one of the hardest hit from COVID when COVID first hit. So the discs were majorly delayed, and to combat this, they changed company, and apparently the factory they went to next was in the Ukraine. So of course that wasn't a great move either, and that's why the Doctor Who range has really slowed down on the release rate, and I think we've only had 2 releases this year as opposed to 4 in other years. But they are massively popular. Most of them sell out, and it just proves that sucker fans like us who've bought them on VHS and DVD will then indeed go and buy them again on Blu-ray. And the BBC has literally been in my pocket buying Doctor Who in various formats for about 40 years now. So I did calculate how much I'd spent on one of our specials on VHS last year, but it was a lot of money just to buy the same things over and over again. And this brings us right up to date. We looked in our news about the newest series of Doctor Who figures that were being released. Colin Baker has had Doctor Who figures released by Character Options over the past 15 years, maybe. And interestingly for him, what made one of the worst costumes on television because of its garish colours and clashing with what was going on screen, it made one of the best action figures, because when you look at it as an actual piece of collectible and the amount of work that goes into it, it is quite stunning. Character have gone and said there won't be as many Colin Baker releases because he is the most expensive figure to make. And I don't know if you can see it on that first picture there. He's got the yellow trousers with the black stripes on. Those black stripes are hand painted. Can you imagine if your job was to go into the factory and you spend an 8-hour day painting black stripes on Doctor Who's pants? I mean, that is not going to be, you're going to go home cross-eyed, aren't you? The Sixth Doctor's era has been quite well represented. It's not the best, the most voluminous era of releases, but he didn't have a huge era, and he's got a lot of his classic villains. He has come out in about 5 or 6 different variants, so you've got different versions of his classic costume, ones with capes. You've got him recently regenerated in the Peter Davison costume. You've also got the blue costume that's been used in a couple of other media, never in the show. And then you've got some of the companions and villains from his era. There's been 3 different versions of Perry. There's been various Sontarans. There's been various Cybermen. And of course, there's been the Daleks, although there hasn't been as many Colin Baker Daleks as perhaps there could be. And when we get through to the history of the Dalek sets that seem to be about 4 a year, maybe we'll see some of the other ones from his era of the show. Overall, you've got to be pretty impressed with the action figures from his era of the show. The big picture there, second from the left, is actually the prototype of his action figure, which I think the paintwork is absolutely stunning. So that is action figure size, but it was hand painted as the prototype for what was coming out. It is interesting because you can get various paint jobs on these, and I've had ones that have absolutely stunning paint jobs. I've also had ones where have sloppy paint jobs. The ones I like the most, if you find one that has a really nice green painted keychain, you can tell that the person who was doing the work that day was making attention to detail. So there's some of the Colin Baker action figures that have been available over the last couple of years. The Black Cyberman is a stealth Cyberman. There's an episode called Attack of the Cybermen where the Cybermen have established a base in the British sewers, and the black ones stalk around the sewers, going a bit more incognito, harder to see. And this is one of the latest Doctor Who figures that is on pre-order and should be available soon. And this is the Big Chief 12-inch Doctor Who Colin Baker figure. Now, these are sort of in the same league as Hot Toys. For those who collect the high-end action figures, Hot Toys are generally sort of seen as the benchmark for the industry. The Big Chief ones are pretty good. I think some of them have been amazing. I think some of them, the likenesses have left a little bit to be desired. The Colin Baker one is particularly amazing, again, because of the costume. You can see when they do a costume like this, it is not a cheap toy. When you do a replica of this Doctor's costume, you're sourcing a whole lot of different materials, or you're screen printing very precisely little clothes and coats. You can see, I think the likeness is good. It's not spot on, but it's still probably one of the better versions of Colin Baker. It's 12-inch scale, so you can see there's someone holding it in their hand, and it's quite a big figure. A lot of these toys, you can take the clothes off and change them, so you'd be able to take the coat and jacket off and things like that and pose it in different ways. So all in all, this is quite a nice collectible, but again, you're looking at $400 or $500 new to get one. But when they sell out, they usually go for more on the secondary market. With a lot of collecting, unless you really pay over the odds, you can't really lose. You'll always sort of break even when you buy a high-end collectible like this, especially when they sell out from the distributor. So this kind of brings us to the end. We're a little bit earlier this week. This is interesting because last week we talked about how Eagle Moss have gone under. And Eagle Moss again produced some Doctor Who mini statues. They've produced the classic version of him in his costume that he wore most of the time. They've also produced the Two Doctors version with Perry, where he, because they were filming in Seville, which was a bit hotter, only had like a colourful waistcoat on and didn't have his big jacket. The likenesses on these are actually really good for figures that are of this scale. They're the same size as Star Wars figures for anyone who wants to get an idea of how big they are. They are metal figures. They're collectible figures, and they're not posable. They all come on a base, and we talked about how Eagle Moss has actually gone under. And so once these have gone, they're gone now. And we do have the Colin Baker one in the shop, and it is actually quite a good figure. Now, I think actually Christy brought this up last week, carrot juice. Carrot juice is interesting for Doctor Who because it is the last words the Sixth Doctor says before he was cancelled. So carrot juice is the end of the era. Carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice. It's not exactly the most dignified lines to go out on, but that was it for the Colin Baker era. So we've managed to get through all the merchandise, a lot of the politics that was happening online, and a lot of what was happening in fandom over the last couple of weeks. So I hope you have enjoyed our retrospective on Colin Baker episodes of Doctor Who and merchandise.
There was a comment here. William had said he liked the idea that it came with the different cat pins. That was that one there, which I picked
Yeah.
up on as well. So it's particularly cool. So different cats will, if there's a whole lot of cat pins for the figure, and the people, of course, lose them, they'll end up being worth more than the actual figure itself. So
Yeah.
I just want to answer a question from earlier on about Doctor Who conventions. I was a bit of a joke about it. Have a T-shirt. I survived the Doctor Who convention. I actually went to a Doctor Who convention in 1991 called Enlightenment. I've discussed it before in another show, and I absolutely loved it. I was there promoting another event, and I had an awesome time. So even though Doctor Who's not necessarily my forte, I can still respect it and appreciate it. And even though I kind of hang shit on it a little bit, I actually have a lot of support for it, especially when I can hang crap on Aaron about it.
Enlightenment is an interesting one because I had a table at Enlightenment like I did at most Doctor Who conventions, and at the end of the day I didn't think the security was very good on the merchandise room. So when my dad went home, I said I'm staying, and I slept underneath the table at Enlightenment to make sure no one pinched any of my Doctor Who stuff. So
well, what could have happened then is someone breaks into the dealer's room. They go, I'm going to steal some Doctor Who stuff. Oh, there's a Doctor Who dude under the table. I'll steal him instead. So there you go. You could have been a stolen collectible. You never know.
Yeah, so there was an all-night Star Trek Next Generation screening at Enlightenment. So I stayed up and kept an eye on the merchandise room as long as I could, and then withdrew into the merchandise room and watched over everyone's table. So that's my memory of Enlightenment.
Very cool. And one thing I did wanted to do earlier, but I couldn't because I wasn't on the show. I just wanted to say hello to Jacqueline, who we've never seen on the show before. So good to see you, Jacqueline. Hopefully you enjoyed it all. And I did see some of your comments popping up along the way, getting your autograph from a Dalek and all sort of business. So good stuff. Hope you guys have all enjoyed it. So very, very cool. Well, believe it or not, that's actually, we're actually going to finish it earlier. We sort of don't need to sort of drag it out. But Colin Baker did have his time. He came, he went, he got replaced by multitudes of other dockies before and after. I did look at some of those figures that you said about having the hand-painted lines and all the rest of it. I was like, yeah, that's a bit extreme, isn't it? And it's kind of ironic that you said as an action figure, all the colors make it look really, really pretty. But, of course, they weren't thinking about that back in the 1980s. So,
yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So after seeing 2 weeks of Doctor Who, Colin Baker, do you have a new appreciation for the era and you feel like watching some, and have you learnt anything?
Let me think about that for a second. No. Oh, goodness gracious me. Absolutely love it. Excuse me. Very, very cool. I think we should probably wrap this one up, old son. What do you reckon?
I think so. Thanks for everyone sticking around the last couple of weeks. We're going to set the TARDIS coordinates to a different area of fandom next week and give Dags a break of the old Doctor Who.
Here's a question for you. Eventually, you're going to get around to the Sylvester McCoy stuff. Do you reckon that's going to be a popular segment or not? Because he was probably the weakest of all the Dockies at the time, wasn't he?
Well, there was 3 years, but interestingly enough, it was really the Dapol action figures that took off during his line. So there's a bit to talk about there. It is another controversial era that was cut short. But really, he was one of the longest running Doctors because he had, no regeneration up until the movie. So he was the reigning Doctor for longer than most of them.
Wackadoo. How about that? You learned it here first, folks, if you didn't know it already. All right, very, very cool. All right, we're going to buzz off. We're going to leave you to it on this cold Wednesday night. Party hard, rock on. We'll see you all next week. And in the interim, if you have any Colin Baker collectibles, leave them minty in the box.
Or as I said last week, rip your Perrys off the card.
Can't say no to that. All right, see you guys. Take care.
Good night.